Hello, good evening. How are you all? Sophie here with my regular Monday Facebook Live. Uh, how's everybody doing? Just wanted to really pop in today and talk about how to stay plant-based over the holidays, because the holidays is very often a time when temptations come in. And for those of you who really are invested in your health and invested in your weight loss journey, being plant-based is most definitely the way to go. Hi, Ines. Lovely to see you here. Hi, Cheryl. How are you, Cheryl? Denise, Kathy, hello, everybody. I'm really happy to see a bunch of you on. So, one thing that is actually pretty exciting, and this is really what I wanted to kick off with right from the get-go, and Cheryl, you'll find this really interesting. Cheryl is a coaching client of mine who has done, extraordinarily well, is that a new study has just come out, and I'm actually going to be doing a YouTube video on this study in depth, because I really want to take it apart and tease it out. But the new study is about how being on a plant-based diet, and specifically a very low-fat plant-based diet, can actually increase your metabolism and can burn calories after the meal, after your plant-based meal, after your low-fat vegan plant-based meal. And so this is quite extraordinary. So stay tuned, because I am going to be doing as I say, a big YouTube video on this, because the results are absolutely fascinating to me, and really corroborate the anecdotal evidence that I've seen over the years of the many women that I've worked with. But all this to say that, normally over the holiday season, which really would have been from obviously Thanksgiving until New Year, I don't know what the average weight gain is, but there is an average weight gain. And honestly, even if it's just a couple of pounds, right? And then there's the usual, oh my gosh, I've got to try and get, all that weight off in January. But year after year, that starts to mount up, even if it is just a couple of pounds. So the exciting thing to me about eating a certain way, which would be primarily a whole food, plant-based, low-fat diet, actually takes you one step closer to who you want to be, rather than 10 steps further away from who you want to be, both health-wise, cosmetically, and everything else. And so as you think about the holiday season, and why I really wanted to talk about how to stay plant-based, for those of you some of you are just dipping your toes in, some of you may not be plant-based at all, some of you may be, well, I'm trying to be a little bit more plant-forward, and all steps in the right direction. But what I really wanted to just dig into today is, we now know unequivocally that for sustained weight loss over time, eating a whole food, plant-based, low-fat diet is one of the tools that I use. Certainly with the clients that I coach, is one of the tools. Is a very, very important tool. It's just one of them, but it's a very important one. So as we go into this holiday season, I'm wondering if you want to share some of your ideas for how you're going to stay whole food, plant-based. What are you going to eat? What are you eating in lieu of a turkey? And the usual sort of holiday fare that we see in the stores right now, the pies and the rich holiday breads and the cakes and the gravies and a lot of it very traditional food. But traditional doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy, and traditional doesn't necessarily mean that it's, as I said before, that it's going to lead you any closer to where you actually want to be. You want to be heading into the new year without having to deal with all of that, weight loss, right? Okay, so Mary Lou, I've heard some very bad things about plant-based meats. Yeah, and many of those things that you've heard are probably correct. When we say very bad, Mary Lou, I think probably what you're referring to is a lot of the fake meats are highly processed. And so they may be made with soy protein isolate, which is a highly processed material. But I think the thing that I can live with, if those foods are an occasional treat. This is for most people. This is not for the women I coach, because the women that I coach, we are going towards absolute optimum health and weight loss. It's kind of like gold standard. So we don't even entertain those sort of fake meats. But I think generally speaking, if you're just dipping your toes into a plant-based diet, or a lot of you trying it for the first time or looking at it, some of those foods can be useful in the sense that they can be a training wheel food for family members. So, if you're wanting to, help your family to become plant-based, then serving them tofu and tempeh and things like that might be completely unpalatable for them. And they may be like, oh my gosh, tofu, are you kidding me? Whereas if you were to serve them a Gardein, there's the brand Gardein, what are they called? They have like little crab cakes and chicken cutlets and things like that. Then they may go, oh, I could maybe do this. This isn't so bad. So they're training wheel foods. But I think the thing, Mary Lou, to your point, that we have to be very, very careful about with any kind of fake meat is the sodium and the fat content, because a lot of them are very, very high in sodium and they're very high in fat. And the fat can vary according to the particular, plant-based burger or meat, or whatever it is in question. Sometimes it's coconut oil, which is very high in saturated fat and is not a health food. And, other oils can come in there as well. So is it a health food? Absolutely not. Is it a training wheel food? Absolutely. That can have benefits, to some people in your family, and just for the very occasional, treat. And also not all of them are made alike. So I'd have to go through, every single brand and really look, but you can. I invite you to, when you're looking at those foods, because there are so many of them in the store now. Plant-based is so popular, isn't it? And, vegan sections in stores, pick up the package and always look at the label and look at the sodium content. That's the most important thing. How much sodium is in it? Now, and how much fat is in it. So let's just talk about sodium for a moment. So I put a post in this in my group. By the way, if you're not in my group, which is Healthy Living and Weight Loss for Women Over 40, make sure you are in that group, because I put little posts in there every now and again, tidbits of information. I do a special little kind of Q&A on a Tuesday in there. So make sure you're in that group if you're not in there already. But I put a post in that group this morning about sodium, and how it relates to cardiovascular disease and stroke. And in that post, to cut to the point, the American Heart Association recommends that you don't have more than 1,500 milligrams of sodium a day. And if you start looking at labels on all the different foods that you eat, all of them, anything that is in a box, a packet, a can, a frozen food, whatever it is, and you start calculating that, doing the math on that, you're going to find that very quickly, even just with a few of those foods, that you're over that limit. And that doesn't even include salt, extra added salt that you might put on your food. So other, dietitians and sources are a little more generous. They'll say, 2,300 milligrams per day. But if you are at risk for cardiovascular disease, if you have type 2 diabetes, if you have history of cardiovascular disease and stroke and everything in your family, then I would definitely go more towards the American Heart Association's recommendation of, no more than 1,500 milligrams a day. Sandy is on, Amy's on, Cheryl's on. Hi, Maureen. Oh my gosh, all my peeps are on. This is so lovely to see you all. So we're just talking about how to stay plant-based over the holidays. I was saying, for those of you who just hopped on late, and those of you who have worked with me will be very thrilled to hear about this. You might have read about it. I posted this in our group, that there is this new study out, which is really shows how, being on a low-fat, whole food plant-based diet really can significantly, it's just so interesting, it can actually boost your metabolism and boost the caloric burn after each meal, which is pretty exciting when you think of the lengths that people go to kind of burn calories or count calories. And I don't advocate counting calories at all, but it is just really interesting to know. And a huge component of that is fiber, the amount of fiber you're putting into your diet. So it's really exciting news. I think as I travel more and more along this path and I read more and more, I think we're getting more and more randomized controlled studies actually on diet and on plant-based nutrition as it becomes more popular. It's like another one pops and another one pops and another one pops, all relating to health and disease prevention. And so it becomes super duper exciting that, this really truly is the way forward. But there is a way to do it and there's a way not to do it. But let's just discuss, for the purposes of tonight, to have some fun. Hey, Marie, let's have... Okay, Kelly, let's just throw open to some questions and suggestions. How are you going to stay plant-based, whole food plant-based over the holidays? So Kelly says, if I could find meals my family loved and look forward to eating, it would be easier. I keep making recipes that none of us love. Yeah, you know what, Kelly, it is a challenge. You've got to get resourceful, and the truth is, ladies, and those of you will know who've done, who've been coaching with me, who've done my coaching program, that the problem is that when you dip in and out of being either on a plant-based diet or eating processed foods, you're constantly tricking your system. And that's really difficult. That's why, I really don't advocate kind of moderation, really. Because every single time you go back to eating whatever it is, an animal product, which can be tasty for many people because it's so high in fat that it's got the fat, the salt, the everything going on, but mainly the fat. Your taste buds were sort of wired to crave those kind of tastes. And so it's very difficult, if not impossible, for you to stay on track with any kind of healthy eating system or plan or diet or anything if you keep popping in and out. And to your point, Kelly, that is really hard when you're living with a family who like to eat whatever it is, animal products. You've got to cook meat for them. You've got to cook whatever it is that they want, pizza or whatever. Then it makes life very difficult for you. And that's when an enormous amount of commitment comes in. And it's really difficult to do on your own. I'm not gonna lie about that. It's very, very hard to make this whole big lifestyle change on your own. There is no doubt about that. And I think my girls, Amy and Cheryl, who's on, will really agree. It requires a pretty sort of enormous approach, and Sandy as well, of you got to do like a 360-degree turn and kind of change everything. And much of that comes to do with sort of learning how to kind of rewire your brain. But so that's why I think, Kelly, it's hard to find things, yes, that are tasty. I think part of it is really adjusting your expectations. You can adjust your expectations of what things should taste like or what tasty is. And your family may not be able to. So your family may be like, no, I like eating, cheese and meat and animal products and whatever it is, the processed foods. And if that's the case, then there's not a lot you can do. You just have to look after you. And if you're bound and determined to look after you and to take care of you, because you is all you've got, it's precious, this lifetime. And to me, when I hear people whose, their husband isn't on board, or their spouse or their partner or whatever, I'm just like, well, you know what? Then, they don't maybe really understand the implications that it has on your health and on their health. And if they really understood that, they would support you in wanting to do that and going any which way to, even if it doesn't taste off the charts like their old food used to taste, they would do it anyway. It's just a matter of where your priorities are. And if your priorities are, I want to make this work, then you'll make it work. But that's a good point, Kelly. You always ask such good questions, because I think as we think of holiday food, you again really want to temper your expectations of what things should taste like. So, for instance, yeah, and that's a great, exactly, Maureen. You can make vegan, you can make plant-based. Things that you like already. So that's a good point, Maureen. So think about things, Kelly, that your family does like, such as maybe marinara pasta. You could do, a chili, a curry, tacos. Think of things that your family already likes eating, and then figure out how you can sneak out the meat. And if you flavor foods really well, you can do that. Now, it's interesting because a lot of people say, well, gosh, when I remove animal products from my diet, I miss that taste. But actually, if you think about it, the taste of a piece of if you were just to boil a chicken breast or boil a piece of meat or poach it, it's going to be completely pretty much tasteless. It's all about the seasonings that we're used to putting on it. It's a lot of fat, is roasting it, so you get that fat taste, and then it's all the seasoning. So you can do things like get a poultry seasoning. I think Trader Joe's does them, most of the major markets do, to get a poultry seasoning and then use that in some of the dishes that you might want to cook. But that's what I would do, Kelly. Maybe go speak to your family and say to them, what do you really like? What are your favorites? Make a list of favorites, and then figure out ways that you might be able to whip the meat out, to whip the cheese out without mutiny happening in the house, okay? All right, so yes, soup, Maureen goes soup. Yeah, soup's wonderful, obviously, at this time of year. For most of us who live in the Northern Hemisphere, soup is you're never going to go wrong with soup. I have soup almost every day, so you can do a really hearty soup so that it's really satisfying, with barley in it, with quinoa in it. You can put a lovely gluten-free grain in it. That makes it very hearty. A minestrone with you can do gluten-free elbows in it and lots of crunchy veggies in there. So soups are absolutely wonderful. And Maureen, that's a great little suggestion of how to stay plant-based during the holidays is lots of soups. Also, what you can do with soups, if you think about it, is soups are so freezable, aren't they? So you can make some soups ahead of time, pop them in the freezer, and then all over the holidays, you've got those soups. By the way, who's got people coming into town over the holidays with the pandemic going on? I'm going to imagine a lot of you are like us as a family. We're going to be like, it's the three of us this year instead of like the big family gathering. So has that changed for you? What's going on with you, with your family situation? Yes. Okay, Marie says, during the holidays would be a good time for me to vegan my diet. Holiday traditional recipes from an Italian family. We'll bake and cook and eat in moderation. Yeah, it's a good time. Yeah, it is absolutely good time. And you can think, Marie, of all those Italian recipes that you really like, whether it's an arrabbiata, puttanesca sauce, which has got the capers and the olives, that is That isn't even, you don't even have to veganize that. That's already is, you know, beautiful, really spicy chili marinara sauce. You know, it's not hard. It really isn't hard to do. Think of all the beautiful soups, the Mediterranean soups, the bean soups, the white bean soups, the fava bean soups, all of that. These are the foods that the blue zones would eat in the Mediterranean. You know, lots of these really beautiful hearty soups. Yeah, there you go, Maureen. That'll work. So Kathy, your army son is coming in from Texas. So what are you going to be cooking, Kathy? What does he like to eat? Are you going to be able to, you know, stay primarily plant-based over the holiday season? Spices makes very tasteful dishes. You're absolutely right. Hi, Carlene. Yes, spices are always good. You know, to me, this time of year, anything with, I love all the kind of holiday spices. I love cinnamon, nutmeg, cardamom, star anise, anything that has that kind of chai spice mixture really works for me. So think about doing things like, you know, whether it's your, you know, latte, making a beautiful chai latte, or your morning oatmeal or porridge and everything. These spices are so healthy. If you like chilies, you know, you're really in luck, because chilies can be really anti-inflammatory. So think about using chilies liberally in so many different dishes. Who likes chilies? Let me know. Hi, Carrie's on too. Oh my gosh, it's so fun to have all you ladies on. Carrie, Amy's on, and so is Sandy, and so is Cheryl from Glow Up. It's so lovely to see all you ladies. I don't have my menu yet, Kelly. I don't have, oh, right, Denise. You've got your 2 adult kids, husband, and me for the holidays. That's lovely. I don't have my menu, no. And I'm going to kind of wing it, I think. I like winging it for the holidays because, you know, the great thing about holidays, ladies, for Thanksgiving and for Christmas, is it's all about sides, really, isn't it? Once you remove the turkey, whether or not you're a turkey fan, I'm sure that in the past you probably loved the sides, right? It's the dressing, the stuffing, the Brussels sprouts, the green beans, you know, I'll tell you one thing that I cooked it for Thanksgiving, and I cooked a lot. I've frozen it, it's in my freezer, it's really delicious, is I steamed carrots, parsnips, and turnips all together, steamed them, mashed them, and that's it. And they are so delicious. Little pepper, little lemon juice on them. And so I made a lot, so I froze half of it, so that'll be coming out again. That's a side that I really, really enjoy. Think about doing things like pureeing as well, your veggies. You know, a beautiful puree. You could do a cauliflower puree, and a puree to me is a kind of halfway house between a soup and the whole vegetable, you know, but it's lovely to have, you know, they can be very comforting, comfort food. I love mashed potatoes. Oh my God, does anybody else love mashed potatoes? I can't get enough mashed potatoes. I like mashed potatoes. I love mushrooms. So I think I've got a video actually on my YouTube channel where I do a mashed potato with a mushroom gravy and beans. I put white beans in it. That's comfort food. It's delicious. It's kind of lends itself really well to the holidays. So there's just so many different things. But to me, honestly, it is about the sides, 100%. Cranberry sauce. Yes, Pamela, absolutely. Cranberry sauce is so healthy. Some of you probably saw, I posted it on my Instagram around Thanksgiving, and I'm now just got bananas about it, is I just love cranberries. And I really get bunches of them at this time of year, and I freeze them. I either buy them fresh and freeze them, or I buy them frozen while they're in the stores, because they will go from the stores. But put them in the freezer, and then I throw them. I sometimes make, if I want an afternoon smoothie, occasionally I want a little mini afternoon smoothie, you can make a beautiful smoothie that I made with cranberries, cherries. I did cranberries, cherries, cauliflower, delicious. and a couple of other dates, and you need a little bit of sweetener in there because cranberries, raw cranberries or frozen cranberries can be a little bitter, but very, very high in oxidants, antioxidants, and delicious. You can easily make a sugar-free cranberry sauce easily and spice it up a bit, put a little bit of zest of orange in, put a little bit of cinnamon, maybe even a cinnamon stick in it. Suddenly you're elevating all these beautiful flavors. I don't know about you, but honestly, for me, I could have Brussels sprouts. I could have some beautiful cranberry sauce. I could have mashed potato or mashed sweet potato, a little bit of a really healthy stuffing or dressing, as they call it in the South, and I'm good. That's it. I haven't eaten turkey in years and years and years. And so, you know, and don't forget, ladies, that even, or gents, if you're watching, that even, you know, contrary to what we sort of many dietitians will have us believe, like, oh, eat lean meats, you know, and you'll be okay. But lean meats, you know, turkey and chicken, particularly chicken, is very high in saturated fat. Modern day chicken, if you look at, just have to look at the size of a bird, the size of a chicken breast, which is massive. When you take a whole chicken breast compared to 100 years ago, it's like this big. So it's pumped full of sodium, and it contains saturated fat as much as beef in many cases. So turkey and chicken and whatnot aren't healthy diet foods. They really aren't. So again, let's switch our thinking away from that, and let's go back to that study, which, as I said, I'll be making a YouTube video about, which really shows that eating a low-fat vegan or whole food plant-based diet, low fat is really key. And ladies in my program, I think you will corroborate that and go 100%. And the low fat piece is the hardest piece. It's the hardest piece to dial in. Would you not all agree, ladies? Amy and Carrie and everybody who's on, you know, the switching to whole food plant-based is relatively easy, but when you're removing oil and going as low fat as you possibly can, then suddenly that's because that takes kind of that fatty, oily flavor that we're used to out of it, and that is definitely easier said than done. But it is interesting, going back to that study, that a whole food plant-based low fat diet with tons of fiber in it, and fiber is the missing nutrient, is America's missing nutrient, or Europe's missing nutrient now as well. But, you know, just by nature of being on a whole food plant-based diet with all that fiber, you know, this study shows, among all the other things that I could tell you about kind of weight loss and a whole food plant-based diet, is that it increases caloric burn after you have eaten. And what was most interesting about this study was 70% of the diet of the control group was carbohydrates. 70% of their diet was carbs. I'll say that again, carbs. When everybody's like, oh my gosh, I got to cut carbs and not eat so many carbs, you know, it was carbs. We need complex carbs. We need them for energy. We need them for lean muscle mass. We need them for satiety. We need them for the fiber. We need them for everything. So it's a big, big mistake to cut out carbs, complex carbs, not simple carbs, not refined carbs, but complex carbs. Okay, Kerry made plant-based lunch today. For a friend today. She was shocked about how yummy. Well, Carrie, you've gotten so good at this, and that's lovely to hear you say that. Absolutely. You know, every time I really pull my finger out and make an effort to really put things together with lots of different flavors and really sort of think about it, then it's possible to make it so utterly delicious. So let's talk a little bit about Meg. Oh my gosh, second time that I got to see you today. How can I even deal with that, Meg? Was out of veggie broth tonight. And what did you say, Meg? Was out of veggie broth tonight and water worked fine. Absolutely. And I would imagine, Meg, you're talking about water sauteing. Yes, you don't need to use broth. You absolutely don't. And you don't really need to use broth for, you know, in a pinch. You can use water in a soup. You can use water for lots of things. The veggie broth just sometimes dials up the flavor. Again, with veggie broth, you have to be very careful with veggie broth because a lot of veggie broth or stock, as we call it in England, is very high in sodium. So you have to be careful with that. I know that really came home to roost because I make a lot of my own veggie broth when I get the chance. I keep my leftovers and scraps, and if you make it yourself, you'll find when you taste it, you're like, oh, does that need a little more flavor? And it's not flavor that it needs. It's like it needs a lot of sodium to even bring it up to what a lot of broths talk about. So, you know, just think about that a little bit, ladies. You know, certainly the ladies, you know, in my group, you'll know that we don't do that anyway. But, you know, generally you definitely want to think about, you know, sodium content. But well done, Meg. I love it. Okay, yay! Okay, a big way to remove fat is to saute. Yes, yes, and Amy, you know that. So Amy, who's on tonight, has done so well. She did my Ignite program and lost a ton of weight and is just rocking it and is an amazing, amazing gal, as is Kerry and Cheryl, amazing, right? Over a year later. Sandy, it's just so good to see you, all you ladies on here. So let's talk a little about any other questions before I pop off tonight about specifically just really, what I wanted to also say is that on Thursday, write this down, write a reminder right now on your phone, or put a reminder on your phone, and please tell all your friends and family. I am having a chat, little fireside chat with Michael Greger, Dr. Michael Greger from Nutrition Facts on Thursday, this Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Pacific. This Thursday at 4:30 Pacific. And we're going to be side by side chatting, and we're really going to be chatting about his new book, which is the How Not to Diet Cookbook. And so, you know, you can, if you have any questions that you want me to ask him, what I recommend you do is in my Facebook group, which is the Healthy Living and Weight Loss for Women Over 40, Healthy Living and Weight Loss for Women Over 40. In that group, there's a link where you can ask me questions. So that is the best place for you. If you're in my big general community, that is the best place for you to ask me questions. It's a link, it'll take you to a little form that you can fill out. And that's really the best and honestly the only way that you can reach me now, because I get so many questions that if you message me on Facebook or something, I probably, you know, slim to none chance that I'll actually be able to get that message because I'm sort of inundated with emails. So if you have questions, please get it, make sure you're in that group and ask your questions in that by following that link. And if you have questions that you want me to ask of Dr. Greger on Thursday, put them in there because I'll take those questions out and I will remember to ask him those questions. So that's great. His cookbook, his new cookbook is fantastic, and I'm going to be going through that, and we're going to be going through it together. So I'm really excited to have him on. Yeah, he's amazing. He's such a fun guy. So that's on Thursday. So finally, before I go, I just want to talk a little bit about sugar and sweetener and baking. Oh, Kathy, that's fantastic. I'm so glad you got it. Yes, I guess so. It's 4:30 my time. And we've already put in, I think Catherine popped a little sort of, you know, what is it called? A preview thing about it already in the groups and on my page. So you can just, you know, double check that I've got the time and the place right. Let's just finally, just very quickly dip into sugar, or sweetener. So holidays, we're used to eating a lot of sweeteners, right? Lots of, you know, chocolates and or sweet things, cakes and cookies and goodness knows what that comes in the house. And so just have a think about how you're going to handle that. And, I get a lot of questions about what's better, honey, maple syrup, agave, coconut sugar, coconut nectar. There's a dizzying selection, isn't there, at the grocery when you go to a health food store? Certainly, it's like, oh my gosh, how do I pick what is healthy, what is not? So the skinny on this, no pun intended, is that sugar is sugar is sugar. Anything that spikes your blood sugar that doesn't have fiber and water in it. Fruit is 100% fine. Fruit is 100% fine. You do not have to worry about fruit, right? Because it has fiber and water. So then that will blunt the blood sugar hike completely. So you're fine with fruit. Dried fruit, got to be a little bit more careful, concentrated, a lot more sugary. But be very careful with all those sweeteners, because I hear a lot with people going, oh my gosh, it's sweetened with agave. Or I'll go to a health food store or a restaurant and they're like, it's agave. What? There's something the other day that I found, or something or other, somebody said to me, or something came to my house, because I'm always being sent things to review, and it was like sweetened with agave, and I was like, done. I'm not eating that, because it does, it spikes your blood sugar. So if you want a sweetener, start really thinking of the sweeteners. If you're a baker, think of those sweeteners that can sweeten your food. You're not going to get the same kind of sweet, but you have to adjust your expectations. But think of things like pumpkin puree. So don't just have pumpkin puree on Thanksgiving. I always have cans of it in my pantry. Think of applesauce, bananas, dates are always the big win. So just think of foods that are whole foods, whole fruit foods that can really sweeten your baking and your dishes beautifully. That's really where you want to go with this. Oh, thank you for that, Ines. That's a really great suggestion. We'll check that out, the Vegan Pantry. Is she, Mayoko, is she the lady, Ines, who does the cheeses, who sells the vegan cheeses? I think she might be. Meg, date syrup, absolutely. If anyone lives in, well, I guess you don't have to live in California, because they probably ship it everywhere, but it's called Julie's. Joolies. Joolies. Julie's date syrup is fantastic, and it's a great sweetener. Another really, Maureen, to sweeten your tea, I don't sweeten my tea. I don't. So I don't really know, to be honest with you. But I will say that stevia and monk fruit is an option, but I don't love stevia and monk fruit because they're 400 to 600 times sweeter than table sugar. So you're kind of never really changing your taste buds, or you're basically saying to your taste buds, you're training them to keep on wanting this very sweet taste. So that's why I'm not a huge fan. But in a pinch, if that's your thing, you can do that. You could put dates. You could try a little bit of date syrup. You could do a little date sugar, but it doesn't melt and dissolve in the same way that sugar does. Just saying, it doesn't. Another sweetener that I really, really like, that I've talked to you about quite a lot in YouTube videos and such, is Yacon syrup. That's spelled Yakon, Yacon syrup. And that is particularly good if you are pre-diabetic or diabetic. It's been shown to be extremely helpful. It's also very, very good for gut health. It is a prebiotic. And so that is one. It's not uber sweet either. And you can use that in baking. You could probably, Maureen, try it in tea. So that's an option out there as well. Yeah, and Meg said, which is absolutely true, and I agree with Meg here, is that maybe find a tea that is naturally sweet. So you could find, hibiscus tea is naturally sweet. And then there are teas by Good Earth, as Meg put in. And I like, there's the Honey and Sons, some of those teas, Maureen. There's the cinnamon spice, sunset cinnamon spice, or whatever it's called. And they have natural flavors. So if you're against having natural flavors, then you wouldn't want that. I'm okay once in a while having a little bit of those in the honey and Sons teas. It's not, there's no added sugar, but it has quite a sweet taste and a real cinnamony punch. So that could work for you as well. Hi, Anne. Chai tea, smoothies. Yeah, absolutely, Kelly. Yep, chai tea. For sure. I love chai tea. I drink so much chai tea at this time of year. And you could make a chai latte, just brew a beautiful cup of tea and then do some steamed almond milk or soy milk or whatever on that. And smoothies, yeah, absolutely. I'm a great one for smoothies. Definitely. The only thing I would say, Kelly, is watch what you put in your smoothie, because there's smoothies and smoothies. So there's really healthy smoothies, and then there's smoothies that you put in, I don't know, you could put in, some people, this sounds crazy and I know you don't, but I have heard it, that some people literally put ice cream in a smoothie. It's like, that's not a smoothie. That would be known as a milkshake, and a very unhealthy one, you know. But just watch what you put in your smoothie. That would be the thing. And smoothie definitely better than juices, because juices spike your blood sugar. All right, so any other questions before I go? I got to shoot. I got to get my plant-based dinner on the I'm cooking. It's bubbling away actually in my slow cooker. But you know, just think about now. Start planning. You know, and asking yourself that question: how am I going to stay plant-based over the holidays? And if you're sitting here watching this live stream and you're like, well, I don't even want to be plant-based, or why would I be plant-based, or what about, you know, what about keto diet over the holidays or whatever else? You know, it just really depends. It depends what you want. And if you want optimal health, if you want disease prevention, then the gold standard for disease prevention and optimal health would be to eat unequivocally a whole food, plant-based diet. And if you want sustained weight loss, that's weight loss over time, that is very, very easy and effortless after a certain amount of time, then that's the direction that you definitely want to go in. There's more to it than just being whole food plant-based, trust me. And the ladies that I work with know there's a lot more to it than that, but that is definitely a step in the right direction. So on my watch, for all of you who are in my community, I highly recommend that you try to make this holiday season, Christmas and the rest of this holiday season, as plant-based as you possibly can. So with that, I'm going to love you and leave you. And Thursday, I'll be on 4:30 p.m. Pacific with Dr. Greger. And don't forget, if you have questions you want to ask of him, go to that little link in the Healthy Living and Weight Loss group for women over 40 group. Make sure you're in that group. Go to that link and ask your questions there, and then I will pull some of those questions out that I can ask him live, which will be really fun. He's a lot of fun. He really is. He's such a character, Dr. Greger. I agree, Maureen. I'm 100%, and you're such an inspiration on that one. All right. Okay, and very quickly, I had a plant-based soup today that my daughter made that was so, with 3 O's, delicious, and that I will share the recipe soon. It was incredible. Great. Carrie, I love you, and a giant hug to you as well. Love you so much. And just have a beautiful, beautiful evening and week, everybody. And I will catch you soon, and maybe see you with Dr. Greger on Thursday. Okay, bye, everybody.